You know, in preparing for this Father's Day sermon, I noticed something. I'm not a father. Don't let my graying hair and propensity towards puns fool you. I am for now merely a son, albeit one who loves his father very much. Son that I am, I figured I would reach out to my fellow sons and daughters, the youth of West End Church, to get a little perspective and insight as to how we want to honor the fathers and fathering people in our lives. Over the past couple of youth group meetings, we've been talking about our dads, who they are, what words we use to describe them, what actions they use to express their love. I won't name names up here, but I do want to share with y'all some of what we said. Dads are loving, caring, nurturing, eating, fun, bad dad jokes, which isn't an adjective but definitely made the cut, understanding, and helping. And then we got into how dads help, and I really like this list. They help us get fed. They put food on the table, help us go to sleep when our minds are racing, help with homework. They help us with emotional support just by being there. They take us to new places and see new parts of the world, expand our perspective. And again, they tell so many bad jokes. Now, jokes actually came up a lot. We all really agreed on this and had a good time chatting. In fact, there was such agreement, I briefly entertained the idea of pulling together a sort of tight 10 comedy set of our favorites. You know, things like, what's the Super Mario Brothers' favorite kind of pants? Denim, 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 yep. Or my personal favorite, what's brown and sticky? A stick, yes. But, as it turns out, we ended up talking about the Bible. The story that Ruby read today is one we know well, the return of the prodigal son. The son who talked his way into his trust fund a little early, who left home for a new stomping ground, blew his cash on dissolute or wild living, a timeless term, if ever I've heard one. And it just so happened that his little Rumspringa intersected with hard times for society, and he found himself scraping by with the pigs. No offense to the pigs, of course. But the part of the story that really stood out to us in youth group, more than the wild living, more than the party even at the end, is that brief but full moment of realization the son must have had when he learned that his father's love was unconditional. You know, leading up to his return, the son is deeply engaged in self-flagellation, mentally and emotionally punishing himself in advance for the ways he knew he failed to live up to expectations, turning guilt over bad decisions into a shame for who he is. A shame that threatened to rewrite and restructure his relationship with his dad. The son seemed to think they had a certain contract, an agreement to behave a certain way, and that if you broke that contract, the relationship itself would be lost. Treat me like one of your hired hands, he said. I am no longer worthy to be called your son, he said. All things considered, I was a pretty well-behaved kid, I'll be honest. My grades kicked butt. I had healthy relationships. I made a ton of music. And I kept my tastes in food and fashion mercifully affordable. But, like all of us, I had my moments. And I want to share a story of one such moment. And granted, it is not very high stakes. In fact, it may be comically low stakes. But, you know, in youth group, we were talking about these moments, these memories where you thought that someone's love for you was conditional, that if you did something mean or wrong-headed enough, your dad would be well within his rights to withhold or withdraw his love. And then that twist, that moment where your idea of what love is and how love works turns out not to be what is in their heart. Their love is actually unconditional. And for many of us, these memories become our first lessons in what unconditional love is. So I'm about 5 or 6 years old. It's the early 90s, so obviously I have a ripping mullet and a wide grin of gnarly teeth to boot. It's my older sister's birthday, and she's got a cake covered, as I recall, with Oreos. And my mom is big on home baking any and all birthday cakes, and usually pretty against heavily branded items making too big an appearance. But I think we can all agree that Oreos would be high on your list of exceptions if you had one. It's a good cookie, and no one's doing it better. I was very enthusiastic about them. If they were in the closet at a friend's house, I was nipping a few. If it was an option for a shake, I was very in. And if they were on someone's birthday cake, I can't tell you why I thought I would get away with this. I mean, there were cookies on top of the cake, and then there were not. My mom carefully arranged at least 10 Oreos on top of a delicate layer of frosting, covered it, and put it away, only to lift the cover a few hours and find an absolutely war-torn scene, holes in the frosting, crumbs everywhere. And it was white frosting, too, so that's some high contrast evidence. Of course, I felt terrible. My sister's birthday time comes, and I can't bring myself to do anything but freak out and cry. I'm definitely punishing myself before anyone else can. Treat me like one of your tiny hired hands, I might have wailed. And it was unfathomable to me that things would be all right. Immediately, I was ensnared in that trap I think we all know, where you reduce your whole self to the last worst thing you've done, that lie that entreats you to self-loathing, whatever that means for a 5-year-old. And really, all my dad made me do was tell the truth, apologize, and then I guess I ran away to feel sad in the backyard by myself until I could be coaxed back in. But when I picture myself crying with my dad, knowing I was in the wrong and needing to confront why I did it anyway, doing so much of the work of self-punishing that neither of my parents really needed to do much more, and picture myself with that goofy mullet, my little 5-year-old teeth. And although no one has ever dared to tell me this, I am 100% sure that I had the absolute worst Oreo mouth you could imagine. Again, why would I get away with this? But I think about my dad comforting me, not laughing or commenting on my blackened teeth, and instead making sure that I understood that there was a huge difference between doing something wrong and being something wrong. That being and becoming more human is an unending process that inevitably means you misstep, that someone's feelings get hurt, and that does not make you unworthy of love. That's just growing up. It's a lesson I never stopped learning, and something that fathers, I think, have a special ability, a superpower perhaps, to teach. And like I said, I'm not a father myself, so I'd like to invite up one of the dads of our church, Greg Muecke, to share some of his experience of parenting 2 kids whom I know we all adore. Greg, if you'll come on up.
All right, thanks, Matt. Thanks for inviting me to share some thoughts. As I was reflecting on the story and the themes of unconditional love and the importance of celebration, even in challenging times, these themes have stood out from this story. And as I thought about my role as a parent to these kids back here, and the importance of trying to strive and instill these values in them, I felt very thankful to this community at West End. Here, it's a community that supports me in doing this, to live out these values, to instill these values in my children. When I was young, about the age of my kids that they are now, from time to time, it would be well into the evening, and I'd be in my living room with friends and family having a big party. Cars would stretch up and down the block, and bedtime would get the night off. These parties were often simply just for the reason that one was needed. In my life at the time, these were opportunities to bring joy into what was otherwise a pretty challenging time. My mother was a mother of 7 children and recently had been widowed after my father had passed away from a short battle with cancer. And I never knew him. He passed away when he was 36, just 3 weeks before my first birthday. And I would give everything that I have to know him. But one of the lessons I learned through my mother and through my family is that even in these challenging situations, there's hope and love, and there's always a reason to celebrate. And here at West End, we live these values out. Will says it every week, and in fact, it's the first thing that we start with. No matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you believe or doubt, you're welcome here. It's a simple statement, but it's unconditional in its welcome. It requires mercy. It requires reconciliation and forgiveness so that we can come together and celebrate. Carrie and I have always felt welcome here, from the days when Pastor Bridget would give shout-outs to Willis in the middle of service, to Nellie taking some of her first steps in the back of church, to the army crawls that will happen here in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's a place where we always feel welcomed. And West End also helps instill the values of celebration. We all have a lot going on in our lives, but here we take the time to celebrate. From the beautiful concerts, from Christmas to Easter, Juneteenth, to Manic Mondays and bingo, to summertime block parties, baptisms, and weddings. Being a father is an absolute joy, and I'm thankful to this community at West End for helping me in the journey and for helping celebrate along the way. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg, for sharing these words of wisdom and letting us as a church participate in and support your family, even in the small ways. By way of conclusion, I'll just say that I've said before that the best love I can give is an imitation of God's. Imperfect, of course, but earnestly so. I believe in a way that this is true for all of us, that we hear these stories of prodigal sons and loving fathers, celebrations and parties, these metaphorical clues that tell us just a little bit about who God is. And we do our best to reflect that love back out into the world. But you know what else that means? It means that when you show me love, you're teaching me a little something about God. It may not reveal all of who God is, but how could it? It's a part, a clue, a sign that points us towards an eternal brilliance. And on this Father's Day, which is also Trinity Sunday, we remember that the unconditional love of a father is one of those signs. That's why Jesus told the story in the first place, to give us a glimpse of God, a God who contains multitudes, who brought us into being, and who is eager to celebrate us, to celebrate you. A God who loves us fully, completely, and unconditionally.